For centuries, the story of Jesus Christ has captivated the hearts of billions, a life so profound that every detail seems to hold infinite significance. We know about his miraculous birth in a manger, his presentation at the temple, and the remarkable moment at the age of 12 when he astounded the teachers with his wisdom. And then, as if a great curtain falls, the narrative goes silent. 18 years pass without a single recorded event, a span of time longer than his entire public ministry, and the scriptures give no hint as to his whereabouts or his daily life. This great mystery, this long and unexplained silence, stands as one of the most enigmatic puzzles in all of Christianity. It is a vacuum that has been filled with countless theories, legends, and questions. This video is not an attempt to provide a definitive answer to the unanswerable, but rather to reverence the mystery itself. Why does the Bible remain silent on such a significant portion of the Messiah's earthly life? This silence is not an accident or an oversight. Instead, it is a deliberate and meaningful part of the divine story, a blank space that invites us to look deeper, to listen more carefully, and to seek spiritual insight beyond mere biographical facts. The silence itself holds a message, a divine commentary on the nature of humility, preparation, and the sacredness of the unseen. It is a story not of absence, but of a purposeful veil, designed to teach us as much as it conceals. Our journey together will be one of reverent investigation, not to fill the gaps with human conjecture, but to understand what the very fact of the silence might be telling us. It is a journey into the heart of faith, where we learn to trust the divine narrative even in its omissions. We will explore the possible spiritual lessons of those years, pondering why such an important period of his life was hidden from our view. By doing this, we hope to move beyond our own curiosity and into a place of deeper spiritual understanding, where we can find meaning and purpose in the quiet, unrecorded moments of our own lives. The Gospels, while providing a profound portrait of Jesus, present a deliberate and startling gap in his life story. Luke 2 verse 52 is the last glimpse we have of him as a youth, telling us that he grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. From that moment, a silence descends that lasts for 18 years, spanning his adolescence and early adulthood until he emerges on the banks of the Jordan River at the age of 30 to be baptized by John. This period is a vast, unwritten chapter of his earthly existence, a void that has invited endless speculation. Yet the biblical text itself treats this absence of information not as a missing piece to be found, but as a sacred veil drawn over a period of his life that was meant to remain private. It is easy to feel a sense of frustration at this lack of detail, to desire a more complete biography, but the evangelists were not writing a chronological history in the modern sense. Their focus was not on the mundane, but on the miraculous, the profound, and the public ministry that would forever change the course of human history. The silence should not be interpreted as a sign that nothing was happening, but rather as a testament to the idea that the most important work of God often happens in obscurity. The hidden years were not an absence from the divine plan, but a purposeful part of it, a time of profound growth and preparation that did not require a public audience to be valid. Early Christians and the Church Fathers, keenly aware of this biblical silence, approached the topic with a sense of reverent awe. They understood that the Son of God, though divine, had to undergo a process of human maturation and spiritual formation, a time of quiet obedience that prepared him for the monumental task ahead. They did not invent fantastic tales of world travels or miraculous deeds, but instead meditated on the power of this hiddenness, seeing it as a model for their own lives of prayer work and spiritual development that often go unnoticed by the world. They believed the hidden years were a lesson in humility, a powerful demonstration that spiritual greatness is forged not in the limelight, but in the quiet, faithful moments of daily living. To truly understand the silent years, we must look beyond the absence of a detailed narrative and into the very fabric of the life Jesus was living. Nazareth, a small, unremarkable village in the hills of Galilee, was not a place of power or prestige. It was a quiet school of obedience and patience. It was in this humble setting that the Son of God grew in wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man. This growth was not a given, but a process, a daily journey of learning, listening, and submitting to the will of his earthly parents and the rhythm of a simple life. The silence of these years was not an empty void, but a powerful furnace in which the very character of the humble servant was forged. In Nazareth, Jesus learned the discipline of submission, living under the authority of Joseph and Mary, and experiencing the daily realities of human existence. He learned what it meant to be a son, a brother, and a neighbor, forming the very bonds of community that would later inform his parables and his ministry. It was here, in the unnoticed moments of daily life, that his perfect humanity was developed, preparing him to be a perfect sacrifice for the world. His life in Nazareth was a living testament to the truth that spiritual greatness does not always begin with a public declaration, but with a quiet, faithful surrender to the will of God in the unseen places. The silent years in Nazareth teach us a profound lesson about our own lives. In a world that constantly demands spectacle and immediate success, we often feel that if our lives are not public, they are somehow not important. Jesus' 18 years of obscurity challenged this assumption, showing us that the most significant growth often happens in the quiet seasons of our lives, away from the spotlight and the applause of others. It is in the unseen moments of faithfulness, in our daily work and our submission to God's plan, that our own characters are shaped and our spirits are formed for the purpose He has for us. This chapter in Jesus' life reveals that God values the hidden years just as much as the public ones, and that the path to a life of great impact is often paved with the bricks of quiet, faithful obedience. The lessons learned in Nazareth were not for show, but for the very mission that was to come, preparing the Son of God to bear the weight of the world with the humility and strength that only a life of quiet service could create. As Jesus grew in Nazareth, He did not spend His days in private study or mystical contemplation alone. He went to work. He was a carpenter, a tekton in the original Greek, a word that could also mean a builder or a stonemason. He worked with his hands, shaping wood, hewing stone, and building the very structures that defined the world around him. This is an astonishing truth to contemplate. The hands that would one day heal the sick, raise the dead, and be pierced for the sins of the world were the hands of a working man, calloused and familiar with the tools of his trade. This reality of Jesus' life speaks volumes about the divine perspective on labor and the dignity of work. It sanctifies the mundane, showing us that God Himself, in human form, chose to spend the majority of His earthly life not performing miracles, but engaging in ordinary, honest labor. This was not a waste of time, but a profound and purposeful part of His mission. Through His work as a carpenter, Jesus demonstrated that God is present in every aspect of our lives, not just in our moments of worship or ministry, but in the sweat of our brow and in the quiet concentration of a job well done. His labor gave new meaning to the idea of a vocation, showing us that all work, when done with faithfulness and integrity, can be an act of worship. The silent years of Jesus as a carpenter challenge our modern obsession with the division between the sacred and the secular. He showed us that there is no job too small, no task too insignificant to be touched by the presence of God. Whether we are building a table, raising a family, or serving our community, our work can be a powerful demonstration of God's love and a sacred reflection of His creative power. The carpenter's hands of Jesus teach us that we do not have to be in a pulpit to be in His presence. We can find Him in the workshop, at the desk, and in the everyday rhythm of our working lives. The silent years of Jesus are a powerful testament to the value of labor, a reminder that we can honor God and grow in His image even while we are shaping and building the world around us. It is a lesson in humility and purpose, showing us that the most divine of lives can be lived with the most ordinary of hands. The silence of Jesus' life between the ages of 12 and 30 is not only a lesson in humility and work, but a profound teaching on the concept of divine timing. For 18 long years, the Son of God, who held the power to change the world with a single word, waited. He did not rush into the public square. He did not begin his ministry prematurely, and he did not use his divine power to bypass the quiet, necessary process of preparation. He waited for the appointed time, trusting in the perfect will of his Father. This waiting was not a passive state, but an active and spiritual act of submission, a holy pause before the greatest mission in the history of humanity. This truth provides an incredible framework for us to understand our own seasons of waiting. We live in a culture that values speed, and we often become impatient and discouraged when our prayers are not answered immediately, or when our purpose has not yet been revealed. We feel that if God is silent, He is absent, and that if we are not actively doing something, we are not growing. Jesus' silent years challenge this mindset, showing us that waiting is not a sign of God's inactivity, but often a sign of His careful and intentional preparation. He was not wasting time. He was preparing for the cross, for the resurrection, and for a 3-year ministry that would forever alter the course of eternity. The silence teaches us that our own lives are governed by a divine timetable, a schedule known only to God. Just as Jesus waited for the Father's signal to begin His work, we too are called to trust in His perfect timing, even when our lives feel hidden or unfulfilled. This trust is not easy, but it is in the waiting that our faith is deepened, our patience is strengthened, and our character is formed. The hidden years were a testament to the truth that God's timing is not our timing, and that His delays are not a denial of His purpose for our lives. The lesson of Jesus' waiting is a powerful reminder that there is dignity and purpose in the season of preparation, and that our greatest moments may be just beyond a long and quiet period of faithfulness. He was not waiting for the world to be ready for Him, but He was waiting for the Father to declare that He was ready for the world. His silent years stand as an eternal reminder that the greatest work in our lives often begins after the most profound season of waiting. The great void in the biblical narrative has not stopped humanity from seeking to fill it, giving rise to countless legends and traditions that attempt to explain where Jesus was for those 18 years. Some ancient texts, though not a part of the canonical Bible, suggest that He traveled to foreign lands like Egypt, India, or Persia to study with spiritual masters and learn esoteric truths. These stories, which have persisted for centuries, claim that He was a student of the Essenes, a Buddhist monk, or even a Hindu guru, using these experiences to inform the teachings He would later bring to Israel. It is crucial to approach these stories not as historical fact, but as spiritual reflections born from a profound human desire to know Jesus more deeply. These legends reveal the heart's hunger for a more complete picture of the one they worship, a yearning to understand how a Nazarene carpenter could become the world's Messiah. While these tales are fascinating, we must exercise careful spiritual discernment, as they often contradict the core truth of Christianity, that Jesus was not a seeker of truth, but the source of it. His wisdom was not gained through foreign study, but was inherent to His divine nature, a wisdom that grew in a humble human vessel, but was not learned from other men. The enduring popularity of these legends tells us more about ourselves than it does about Jesus. They show our tendency to believe that great spiritual wisdom must come from exotic places and grand journeys rather than from the quiet, faithful life of a simple carpenter in a small town. They reveal our own desire to find the extraordinary in the mundane, and they remind us of the importance of grounding our faith not in human tradition or speculative history, but in the clear and unshakable truth of the biblical witness. The silent years were hidden for a reason, inviting us not to fill them with our own stories, but to trust in the wisdom of a God who chooses to reveal what is most important and to veil what is not. The true essence of Jesus was not found in foreign lands, but in the quiet obedience of Nazareth, in the humble labor of a carpenter, and in a profound season of waiting for the divine moment to be revealed. While the Gospels are silent about Jesus, they are also silent about Mary's experience during these 18 years. a period that must have been filled with a unique blend of awe, wonder, and quiet apprehension. She was a mother who knew the miraculous origin of her son, who had heard the angel's pronouncements, and who had received a promise that he would be called the Son of the Most High. She had kept all these things, pondering them in her heart as he grew from a boy into a man, watching her divine son live an ordinary life, working with his hands and growing in obscurity. Her silence during these years is a powerful testament to her unwavering faith, a model of a mother who trusted in a divine purpose she could not yet fully see. Mary's role during this time was not to reveal Jesus, but to nurture him, to raise him in a household of faith and obedience, knowing that one day he would have to leave her side to fulfill his cosmic destiny. She had to witness her son's profound spiritual maturity, knowing that it was not just a natural development, but the unfolding of a divine plan. It was a long road of parenting, one where she had to surrender her own expectations and trust in God's perfect timing, even when that timing was veiled in mystery. Her quiet strength in this season is a powerful model of faith for all who are called to raise children with a divine purpose in view, showing us that the most impactful work often happens behind closed doors in the daily faithfulness of a mother's love. The silence of Mary's heart is a testament to the profound truth that sometimes the greatest act of faith is simply to hold on to a promise, to trust that God is at work even when we cannot see the final outcome. She was the one who knew the magnitude of who he was, and she had to endure the long wait with a quiet dignity and an unshakable trust. Her journey during the silent years was one of faith in preparation, a divine witness to the forming of the Savior. She was the keeper of the secret, the one who saw the divine and the human intertwine in the most ordinary of settings, and her story is a reminder that the most profound spiritual journeys often take place in the quietest of moments. The silence of Jesus' years in Nazareth was not a void of experience, but a season of profound spiritual formation, a time when he was being prepared for the unimaginable suffering that lay ahead. While he was sinless, the Bible tells us he was tempted in every way that we are, meaning he was not immune to the quiet, unseen struggles of the human condition. He would have known what it was like to be misunderstood, to endure the mundane hardships of daily life, and to face the temptations and rejections that are common to all people. This was a time of suffering without spectacle, a wilderness season where his faithfulness was unseen by the world, but profoundly witnessed by the Father. These hidden struggles were an essential part of his preparation, shaping him not just as a divine figure, but as a compassionate and empathetic high priest who could truly understand our pain. His journey through these unseen trials was not for a public audience, but for the perfecting of his own human heart. He learned obedience through what he suffered, not in a grand public display, but in the quiet moments of his daily life in Nazareth. This was the spiritual formation of the Lamb who would one day be led to the slaughter, a profound and necessary preparation for the mission that would require an unshakable resolve and a deeply empathetic heart. The silent years of Jesus are a powerful encouragement for those who feel that their own spiritual struggles are unseen or unappreciated. They tell us that God is deeply present in our own wilderness seasons, in the moments of temptation and quiet suffering that no one else knows about. Our character is not formed in the grand moments of public victory, but in the private moments of faithful endurance, when we choose to trust in God even when no one is watching. The silent years of Jesus sanctify our own hidden seasons, reminding us that even when our faithfulness seems unnoticed, it is profoundly seen and valued by God. This time in Jesus' life teaches us that the greatest acts of faith often occur when the lights are off, and that the heart of the Son of God was formed not in the center of a crowded temple, but in the quiet solitude of a humble carpenter's workshop. His suffering was not for show, it was for the sake of his mission, and it gave him the depth of empathy required to save a broken and hurting world. The omission of 18 years of Jesus' life from the biblical account is not a mere gap in a human biography. It is a profound and theological act of divine communication. God, in his sovereign wisdom, chose to be silent about this period, and in that silence, he speaks volumes. By withholding the details, he invites us into the sacred space of mystery, calling us to trust in his providence and to contemplate the nature of a life lived in obscurity. The silence itself becomes a prophetic utterance, telling us that some things are meant to be known through faith, not through a meticulous chronological record. It teaches us to listen differently, to hear the message not just in what is said, but in what is left unsaid. Divine silence is often more profound than speech, because it requires us to move beyond our need for information and into a deeper place of trust and contemplation. The silence of the silent years is a lesson in the essence of faith, asking us to believe that Jesus' life was perfectly planned, even in the parts we cannot see. It suggests that the wisdom we seek is not always found in a detailed account of every moment, but in a profound reflection on the moments that are revealed. The omission of these years is not a lack of information, but a gift of revelation, showing us that God's ways are higher than our ways, and that his perspective on what is important is often different from our own. The theological significance of this prophetic silence is that it forces us to focus on what matters most: the public ministry, the cross, and the resurrection. The silence gives greater weight to the moments that are recorded, allowing them to shine with a greater intensity and meaning. The years in Nazareth were a powerful demonstration of humility, but the moments of his ministry were the moments of his divine proclamation. The silence, therefore, serves as a divine framing device, a sacred container that holds the most important parts of the story in the foreground, calling our attention to the purpose of his coming. The silence of the silent years becomes part of the revelation itself, teaching us that there is a time for all things, a time to be seen and a time to be hidden. It is a powerful reminder that our faith is not built on a need for every answer, but on a humble acceptance of God's sovereignty, even in the parts of the story that remain unwritten. The silent years were not a time of divine pause, but a season of intense preparation, a divinely orchestrated formation of the Son of God for his ultimate mission on the cross. The scripture tells us that God was working in these years, preparing the lamb for the ultimate sacrifice. Just as a lamb in the Old Testament was chosen and set apart, carefully inspected and prepared before its offering, so Jesus was being spiritually, emotionally, and physically formed for what lay ahead. The hidden years were the moments when the sinless human nature was being readied to bear the full weight of the world's sin and to become the perfect sacrifice for all humanity. This preparation was not just a symbolic act, but a necessary and profound journey. He had to be prepared to endure the temptations of the desert, to preach with an authority that astounded the crowds, and ultimately, to face the shame of the cross with a love and resolve that only a life of perfect obedience could create. The hidden years were the training ground for the public ministry, the place where the humility, empathy, and wisdom we see in the Gospels were first forged. This period was not a time of inaction, but a time of intentional spiritual growth, a time when Jesus' divine nature was perfectly integrated with his human experience. The story of Jesus' preparation is an incredible lesson for our own lives, showing us that before any great mission or ministry, there is always a season of preparation. God does not call us to a task without first equipping us for it. Our own silent years, our own seasons of hiddenness and struggle, are not a waste of time, but a divine preparation for the purpose he has for us. These are the times when our character is being refined, our faith is being deepened, and our hearts are being shaped for the trials and transformations we cannot yet see. The silent years of Jesus are a powerful encouragement, a reminder that God prepares the vessel before he pours out the blessing. They tell us that our seasons of waiting and our moments of quiet faithfulness are an essential part of the divine plan, preparing us to become the people he has called us to be. The journey through the silent years of Jesus is not an academic exercise. It is an invitation to find profound meaning in the often unrecorded seasons of our own lives. The most important lesson from this hidden period is that our value and our purpose are not defined by public recognition or by the magnitude of our external accomplishments. The silent years of Jesus teach us a deep reverence for the power of patience, the strength of perseverance, and the holiness that is cultivated in obscurity. When our own lives feel quiet, when our prayers seem to go unanswered, or when our purpose remains unfulfilled, we can look to the example of a Savior who spent the majority of his life in patient obedience, faithfully living in a hidden season. This quiet period reminds us that God is not just a God of the miraculous, but a God of the mundane. He is not only present in the powerful moments of our lives, but also in the long years of waiting, working, and learning. The silent years of Jesus sanctify our own seasons of preparation, giving dignity to our daily tasks, our family responsibilities, and our quiet moments of spiritual growth. It is a powerful reminder that our faith is not just for the mountaintops, but for the valleys and the long, flat stretches of life where nothing seems to be happening at all. From the silent years, we learn that God's timing is perfect and that He is always working behind the scenes, preparing us for the purpose that He has ordained. Jesus did not rush to start His ministry because He trusted the Father's plan, and we too are called to rest in that same trust. We do not have to force our purpose or create our own breakthrough. We can have confidence that God will reveal our next step in His perfect time. The story of the silent years is a gentle whisper to our hearts, a call to find peace in the unseen and to recognize that our most significant growth often happens in the places where no one is watching. The quiet, unseen faithfulness of Jesus for 18 years transformed the mundane into the sacred and proved that a life of great purpose is built on a foundation of humble obedience. It is a timeless and beautiful lesson for all of us, reminding us that when life feels quiet, unknown, or unnoticed, we are walking the path that Jesus Himself walked first, and in doing so, He forever sanctified it. The mystery of Jesus' silent years invites us to trust in a God who works in ways we cannot always see or understand. We are grateful you joined us on this journey of discovery and contemplation. If this message brought you clarity, hope, or a new perspective, we would be honored if you would subscribe to our channel to join us for more journeys into the depths of Scripture. Please take a moment to like this video. It helps others discover this message. We would also love to hear from you, so please leave a comment and share what resonated with you most or what lessons you have learned from the silent years of your own life. And above all, please share this video with a loved one, a friend, or anyone who needs to be reminded that in the quiet seasons, God is still at work. Thank you for watching, and may you find profound peace in the knowledge that your own silent years are seen and valued by God.